All right. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Is that awkward? We got this, right, guys? Four grown adults here. Actually, we're all really old, aren't we? Who's the youngest? Is it you?
I'm 30.
I'm
Oh,
the
it's
youngest.
Mithy.
I'm 29.
Oh, by a year.
Wow, that's really young.
Oh no, guys.
All right. So let's just go through some introductions. I guess I'll start. I'm Meteos. I used to play on C9 with High back in the day. And now I've moved into doing content creation, co-streaming and stuff. And start us off, Mithy.
I'm Mithy. I used to compete against C9 back in the day, and now I'm the head coach.
Nice. My name is Hai. I used to play with this guy, played versus this guy, and now I'm managing the team with this guy. And he'll introduce himself right about now.
I'm David. I never used to play, but I'm managing the team with High.
And he's the highest rank right now out of us four, though, just so we're clear.
Wait. What's your rank?
I'm Masters right now.
Yeah, I decayed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah.
What is your actual role in the team? Like, what is being a manager? Like, what are you doing?
So the actual manager role does a lot of different things. They do a lot of logistics for the players. So basically doing the scheduling of practice, making sure that players are where they need to be and they have the correct stuff. It's kind of like a dad to like a kid in a way. And you can do even more than that though. Like for me, I want to do more and like help them create a healthy lifestyle so that they can be the best athletes that they can. You'd be surprised that some people don't know how to be an adult, which is fine because that's what we're here for, to make their life easier and help them grow as people. So I want to be able to like do everything I can to make their life as good as possible and as easy as possible outside the game because they play the game much better than I do, right? So I want to make them be healthy, get good sleep, eat well, make sure that they communicate well with their teammates, work well with their peers, be able to take feedback well. And those are all things that I've experienced as a player. So I'm excited to be able to help these guys like, be good teammates and be good people.
Cool. Do they call you daddy?
I don't think so. I'd prefer them not
Not
to.
yet?
Nah. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Okay. Well, Hi, if you're back managing the team, do you guys need a superstar jungler or anything? Like maybe
I
a
gotta
better
say,
jungler?
I don't believe Blabbers has ever had like a 12.6 KDA, right? Like he's got an MVP and won a couple times, but like his KDA has never been better than Meteos is. So like therefore the stats say he's better.
We should consider Meteos.
What do you think, Mithy?
Yeah.
A KDA.
Yeah. That's the most important stat in the game, right? That's what everyone looks at. Yeah.
Our roster next year is going to be our three staple players of Berserker, Blabber, and Fudge, who've been around for, I think, Fudge and Blabber for like the last 3 years or more. And Berserker for 2 years now. This will be his third. So we're keeping those three, and then we're bringing in Jojo. He is very young, very hungry, and a resident mid laner. And then we're pairing that up with Phil Vulcan, who used to play for us in the past, and he will be our support, replacing Sven. I mean, I think the Jojo, like replacing Eminence, is just a quality of life change, honestly, in all regards. And then for Phil replacing Sven, it's a little bit of us wanting to change something. Things like the support role being very extensive throughout the last year, making Sven change and adapt a lot of his playstyle, and just things not really working out, us wanting to change things up, and bringing Phil in, which is, someone we know. So
Was it a tough decision? Because, obviously you and Sven have a super long past. You guys are close. Was it hard, switching?
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard in many ways, like partly because in the back of my mind I felt like there was a place for him where he could play what he was good at, but we tried, we just weren't not figuring it out enough, and then he wasn't playing the range champions enough, and then he was very overwhelmed when he played the engaged champions. It's like a matter of experience, really. Like it just comes with time, and like just the nature of competition and stuff. Like we didn't have the time, so it felt rough. I mean, I think we still have a good relationship, but obviously, I would have liked to see him succeed together with me for a longer time. So
Yeah. Are there any concerns of Jojo writing a manifesto when he's done playing?
well, I haven't really gotten to know Jojo personally, so far no.
Okay.
I'm pretty excited about our roster. I feel like I've talked with JoJo a little bit, not too much, but I've seen him play a lot, obviously. I feel like he's got a really bright future ahead of him on top of like the rest of our players too. I remember like reading some comments and stuff like about people like being a bit concerned about like our top laner Fudge. And I think a lot of things that the fans don't really realize is like how much a person can contribute to a team atmosphere outside of just what you see in the game. Like sure, maybe you can say like this player on paper is better than this player, but then you don't really know what happens behind the scenes. And Fudge adds like a lot of value to our team outside of the game. And at the end of the day, you don't win as a single player. You win as 5 people together. And he provides a lot of value to that team that we have. So outside of that, adding the addition of JoJo and Vulcan to our team as well, I think it adds a new honeymoon phase for us, for the team. Since whenever you get new players, everyone's like super happy to like have a new environment. Me and David are gonna be working closely with them next year as well. Like I'm a new addition as well, so we'll be able to curate like a good environment for everyone on board. So I think this year that's coming up for us. I'm super excited about our team. Everyone's gonna try their best. We're all here for them. Mithy's here. We have Veigar as our coach as well. I think 2024 is gonna be a really good year for Cloud9 with everyone that we have.
And in terms of the game and why we like what the players that we have mean to us, things are gonna change a lot. So we can't really expect what will happen next year in terms of like league. Is like the whole map is changing, the items are changing, so it's gonna be hard to see what will be good and what will work for our team. So having that like consistent base of just solid players that can play multiple styles is going to help us. I think the challenge on paper will be like the outside of the box drafting with our current team, and like how we can create advantages through just a little more niche picks with the the champions, the players that we have. But I think, I mean, I've already talked to everyone, and everyone kind of understands, and we're gonna try. I think we are mindful of that. We are aware, and we're gonna see what we can come up with throughout the season.
Mm-hmm. With draft 2, we're gonna have Veigar help a lot with the draft this year as well. He's based over in Europe, so on stage I'll be on stage helping you with draft as well, or the team. Not so much like just making sure that a lot of times when teams go on stage, they kind of forget, like they kind of like make a plan B and go with plan B instead of plan A, which is what you plan for. So I'm kind of there to like help out and make sure that like players stay on track, that they're listening to Mithy and they're not over talking him and stuff like that during draft. And just making sure that when the draft that we set up for the game, we stick with it rather than trying to deviate. So I'll be on stage helping Mithy as well this next year with whatever he needs.
Or this is mostly for high, actually entirely for high. Is it hard to keep your your own experience and opinions out of the team, because coming into a manager role, you're not like in a coaching role, but when you see something going on and you're like, oh, that just looks wrong, like do you have that urge to want to be like, yo, don't do that, or is it easy to just be hands off?
So far, it's been pretty nice working with Mithy specifically. He's really receptive if I do have something to say. He realizes that, like, well, number one, it's not my job to be a coach per se for the team, but he's been always willing to hear me out. Like if I had something that I say about like a Baron player or something, he's always been willing to listen to me, and I think that's like super nice. Just that they're willing to like hear me out in the first place. So there are times where I do want to say something if it's like super important or like they're not talking about it. But most of the time I'm pretty hands off with it because like he's doing a great job. He doesn't really need me to say anything. But in cases there are things I want to say, the players and the coaches so far have been pretty receptive towards it for sure.
I mean, I think to add on to that, I think your experience as a player really does help out with like team atmosphere and just like helping out Mithy. Like I know you're hands off and everything, but like being an advisor to be there if Mithy has any questions, I think it's really valuable.
Yeah, on my end, anyone involved in the team in any capacity, as long as their purpose is to make us better, it doesn't, there's always time I can give for that.
Yeah.
Whether I take the advice or not, I feel like, I should always listen. Like even Madeline, when she was in Korea, she was like our content creator, and sometimes we have discussions, we have trouble, and she's with us, right? So I'm like, hey, like, what do you think? What's your opinion on things? Like, also always having like another point of view helps, and I don't necessarily always like take in everything, and like this, like I at the end of the day I'll have my own decision, and together like work together with the rest of the staff, but opinions never really hurt.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool. So it's more the opinion of like, a good idea can come from anyone.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
You're just there to decide what the team does.
Yeah, and especially if someone's pouring energy into like a project that we all have, a common goal that we all have, then there's no reason not to listen to that.
It can even be things like not necessarily just about the game. Like people can be giving input on like, hey, this conversation you had with this player kind of went poorly because the language that you used here was like too aggressive or something. Like, what's your thoughts on like phrasing in a way where you don't hurt their ego and things like that? Those are things that are important as well, because at the end of the day, every pro player has a pride and ego, and that's a good thing to have. But you still have to keep that in mind when you try to talk to them, so that like you don't hurt their feelings and make it like keep it professional. So even things like that, a lot of people can help for. So.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the things that I really appreciated about Mithy is that he's like very receptive to feedback, and he does really listen to everyone, even if you're not like an ex-pro player. Like even someone like Madeline gives you like some like ideas, and then you would actually listen to her and actively listening. And like I think that's one of the things like we really appreciated as managers, that you are able to do that. I don't think like that's not a quality, but like characteristic that you see in a lot of like ex-pros or coaches who's been players before.
Mm-hmm.
So Veigar's main strength is he's a high challenger player. Well, not very high, but like he's a very good player. He has a lot of player knowledge, and a lot of individual, like he teaches the guys on an individual level, like most laning fundamentals that we need. And he also plays regularly, so he will see a lot of new builds coming up, new champions coming up. He'll have a good read of the game. He has good relationships where he talks about the game, and they come up with ideas and stuff. So he gives us that angle that I just don't play the game enough and at a high level enough for me to always have like to just have like a front runner opinions on things all the time. So he does cover that mostly, and he is the one that's taught me personally a lot of the individual, like how to look at a game from how to dissect the lane and like individually, and like what I can learn and how I can manage the lane better and stuff, and what it gives to the team. So he's helping with that mostly, and now we had to let go of some coaches, so he's taking on some more responsibilities. And he's always been helping me with draft because of what I just said. He knows a lot, and he understands draft quite well. And then now he will be taking on more responsibility in reviews as well, and just in general, like whatever the team, when the team is going through something or I want to present something, he is very good about getting his videos ready and making some nice presentations for the guys, like just anything to make them take in information easier. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of like laning, or like he's also a positional coach, right? Like he's like really, like I think you mentioned it, but like mid lane, top lane, and is he gonna be involved with like bot lane as well?
Yeah, he's involved with anyone really. Like whenever he sees something, he'll go at it. He does play mid lane as his main role, so he's more keen to help mid and top. But like at any time he sees something from any lane, he'll participate.
What did you guys think about what happened at Worlds with T1 winning the whole thing, and how the meta shaped up over the quarterfinals, semis, and finals?
I can talk about that. Well, T1 was able to like empower their top laner, who is very good at playing all of these like matchups where he's not just tanky. Like the meta in at Worlds was like top lane were bruisers that when they got resources or when they got ahead, they had a lot to give to the game. So they were able to play pushing lanes in all lanes basically, and that created situations where their top laner I think could shine in the early to mid game, and I think that's like that's what kind of shifted the meta. Like their bot lane was like their AD was playing more utility champions, their support was therefore empowered, and then they just played off timings. So because their bot lane was winning, they had like their dragon timing, they had their level 6 first timing on their support for Herald, and with those two timings they already kind of like structured their early game in a consistent way where they had pushing lanes, they could take the first two objectives, and then they can set up the map in a way where their top laner especially would be comfortable, and then they would be able to have good early fights and up until the point where it's like they're in a very leading position, when it comes to snowballing the game. So it was a good idea. I thought it was like not to say that it didn't do bad, but like for example, JDG has a different style, like intrinsically, and I thought they would be able to match T1, but they chose to play the same way as T1 did. So maybe scrims showed that T1 was winning playing the way they did. I don't know, but I felt like JDG should have stuck to their guns. Yeah.
It's interesting to me that this kind of meta seems to happen the most at Worlds, where like the bot lanes just seem to like want to ego each other so hard to the point where they're picking like Caitlyn Ashe 1-2 just to have some like completely degenerate pushing lane, and then the other bot lane matches. And we've seen it before in the past with like Misfortune coming out against Zyra support, or like Heimerdinger support coming out. Do you think there's a reason why that mostly shows at Worlds rather than like domestic leagues?
Well, it was the meta as well, right? Like in domestic leagues throughout the season, there was a lot of Zeri, which you can't really punish. It's like playing Ezreal, but like with all-in potential. So it's because of Zeri, things were like on the static shiv at the time. So things were changing a lot in that sense. When it comes to past metas where they were playing Zyra Ashe and all that stuff, again, it was a little bit more related to other picks in the game that were very strong. Like there was the time where there was the high noon meta. Like it was like Senna, Ashe, and what's the other high nooner?
Lucian? No, not
There's Lucian, Thresh, but I don't think they fit with that.
No, Senna, Ashe. That was the Damwon meta. But basically, Damwon was playing carry junglers, and they would just need bot lane push so that they had pushing lanes everywhere and that their jungler could get ahead. And then this time around, it was bot lane push so that you can get Herald. Like you just control the game and you get Herald. And if the other team tries to go get objectives, then your bot lane just like gets too ahead for trying to help. So it's just anyway. It's I don't know. That's my read on it. But I think that's the reason why it happened at Worlds, and I think that it's not as black and white. I think a lot of the times at Worlds is just happens to be that the team that has the best players playing the style that they want to play and have success with it is leading what the meta is. So let's say KT was beating T1 in scrims, then maybe we would have seen Alistar first picked throughout Worlds. It's just a matter of who's kind of like the front runner in scrims and who's dictating the pace of things. And it happened to be T1 because they are a very good bot lane, and Keria is very good at range champions, and they were leaning on their strengths, and it was just working out for them. The same way their top laner was also playing very aggressive matchups and having a lot of success with that.
I think often at Worlds, when that time comes, you play against the best teams in the world, right? So it's very hard for you to pick like these super scaling champion matchups. So people, when you start practicing against these teams, you start losing in lane phase and you lose the game because they're a good enough team to close out from their lead. So then teams try to pick stronger early game or stronger laning so that they can actually make it past that and try to win the game is what I've noticed a lot actually. Like if you're losing early game against one of the best teams in the world, you're going to lose late game. So then most times the teams try to pick a stronger early game so that they can actually make it past that and like they try to snowball instead. That's what I see happen a lot. And when you're in domestic leagues, you have so many more games to play out, so you can try out different things like scaling champs or like things like that. And you're not as pressured to pick a strong early game every single time because these teams generally in domestic leagues, often they're going to be bad teams, right? And those guys can't punish you as hard as the best teams in Korea, the best teams in Europe, best teams in America, etc. So usually when Worlds comes around, a lot of people try to win lane more often because when they lose lane, they usually lose the game because the enemy team closes out. That's something I've noticed at least. Whether that happened at this Worlds or not, I'm not entirely sure. But other than like the draft itself, for our performance at Worlds, obviously we could have done better. But it was a pretty good learning experience for us, I think, knowing what we should do moving forward. I can't talk too much about it because then it's going to give away what it says, but I feel like we learned a pretty good lesson here at this World that can be easily applicable to future events that we're at. Because sometimes, like, if you lose at Worlds just because you suck, that's fine, but I feel like what happened to us was a bit different than that. But that's just my read on it, so...
I mean, I don't know. I've gone through this rodeo enough to be like, yeah, we learned some stuff, and then... next year the same thing happens. Like it's always new challenges every year, and sure
this challenge will be taken care of next year, don't worry.
We're gonna think about new things, and we're gonna try and cover those things, and then there's gonna be other challenges that come up, and then we're gonna go repeat the cycle in a different way next year, and then the year after that. Okay? We will be optimistic.
2024 was gonna be a good year for us. You can't just toss it as a dumpster out.
I am optimistic. I'm just saying like
realistic.
I'm just saying like there's more to things, like this year I thought we had like judging from the scrims, I thought individually the guys did a good job. We got there earlier than usual, and we it felt from scrims that we were ready to play against some really really top class world players, and when it came down to it, I just felt like the team crumbled under the pressure. Like things were going better, we were getting somewhere, and then a lot of it is obviously my fault as well as the head coach. But yeah, the team just the dynamics just weren't there, and the trust started dissipating, and there started to be doubt in game with the team in the draft as well. Everything starts creeping all over the place, and then I really don't think our series against Fnatic was a representation of either team. I'm sure Fnatic was also in a very similar boat to us, and they just somehow managed to scrap it together better than we did, but it was not a high quality showing, and a lot of the times that's what a month bootcamp does. Like it breaks or makes teams, and that's also the beauty of Worlds, how some teams can get it together and have a good run, and how other teams just crumble under the pressure. It's just what it is.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think second, third week into boot camp, we were actually looking very competitive, and like we were like players looked very confident on like the drafts that we were preparing for, and we kind of saw that in T1's draft in like what we were trying to play. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not the coach, right? But like the bot lane they were playing, like a lot of it we were practicing as well, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, we were playing. Like the thing is, we don't know what's right and what's wrong. We tried some things. We were also playing range champions and doing all these things, but then you scrim against KT, and then they're like first picking Alistar, and you're losing every game, and you're like, oh well, I guess the meta is this then, and things just it just gets harder. I think I explained it well. It isn't easy. These teams, they just get it together. They learn from their scrims in a better way. Again, maybe staff could be doing something better, players could be doing something better, but at the end of the day, it just didn't click for us, this Worlds. And some Worlds, it feels like it clicks and then you lose and you're disappointed because we just dropped the ball. But I feel like this Worlds was one where it just didn't click, and partly is player personality, partly is coaching staff. Next year, there's 2 new players coming in, and like you said, like maybe honeymoon phase, and after honeymoon phase, like we'll see how everyone clicks and how we can build off that, and how the gameplay side of things turns out, and then we'll try to apply all of our learnings throughout 10 years now, and we'll give it another shot. Yeah.
Coming into 2024, the LCS is going to be moving down from 10 teams to 8. Is this something you saw coming? What do you think this is going to mean for the league? Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of questions, and I'd just be curious to hear your opinions on it.
You want to go first?
Sure. I think moving from 10 teams to 8 teams is a good choice because it makes every team stronger, more competitive. It's bad only for people that want to be a player or like a pro, but from a spectator point of view, with 8 teams, it's easier to be a fan of these teams because there aren't so many. Like I know like a lot of my friends that aren't too much into League, it's hard for them to keep up with what team is what team because there are so many before. So going down to less teams is helpful for newer people. And also, since there's less spots for players, individually each player on each team is going to be better just due to the nature of less positions that they can have. So I'm a big fan of it. I think it's going to be good for us and allows for more format changes. So instead of having 10 teams that have to play all the time, having 8 can do more cooler things. Like maybe they'll, I don't know, change the way playoffs works, like add another split or something like that. I don't really know. But having less teams allows for more flexibility in the current format and schedule. So I think it's a good change personally.
I think the league is, so like North America, like the server is underpopulated, and the quality of league is too low for there to be like a real career path for a lot of the up and coming players, like the young players. So I think it is good not only to cut the LCS to 8 teams, but also to remove academy and create a scholarship system where you're actually going through college while playing league and going through that direction and making it like a lot more healthier. I think that's the right way to go about it for North America. So I hope that's what ends up happening. On that note, I also think that they could remove 2 more teams, for example, and combine North America with South America and create like the Americas together, which is a little bit what Valorant is doing. Maybe that's the direction they're heading. I think that's what they should do because of, like just a matter of like the league being underpopulated. And I think it will create a lot more viewership. It will be a lot more competitive. And, if they also change the narratives a little bit and like promote competition within our own leagues instead of like having all these international tournaments where there's a clear difference between a server that has like 15 times your player base than when the North American players go to Korea server and they have like 15 times the player base in Korea and you're expecting to catch up to them, which are like their players are like incredibly talented, right? Like, I mean, the pool that they have of players is like, how are you going to compete in 3 weeks of practice? That's not really realistic, So they have to change their whole system. I think they're starting, they have a good start with NA. I hope that's the direction they're heading, where they're like combining the Americas together, and hopefully they're making like a Western, coalition where we get more tournaments together and we actually get to do a lot more fun stuff together. That's what I hope. If they wanted to make the league scene competitively globally, well, I think for that they would need to open all of the regions, and until that happens, there's just no way a server that gets players from China, China, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, they're all playing on the same server, legally or illegally, doesn't really matter. It's just impossible competitively to compete against that. We just have to wait until the internet gets globalized, for us to see a real, even playing ground. That's all it is. It's the same in every game, every sport, all over the world. It is what it is, and it's just a matter of numbers, regardless of anything.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I mean, you said it though. I mean,
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks, David.
yeah.
Were you guys surprised at all for like which two teams left the league? Because like based on what we've seen the last couple of years, I would not have expected it to be like Golden Guardians and Evil Geniuses. I would have thought maybe like, some of the lower performing teams like Immortals, Dig, someone who, didn't really feel competitive in the league. But, we got two teams that have both, gotten to playoffs, international tournaments. Like these were definitely competitive teams that left.
I mean, from what I've heard, it was a mutual agreement between Riot and the orgs that decided to leave. And competitively, I do agree. Like, it was surprising because those two teams historically performed pretty well over the last few years. Well, maybe not Golden Guardians. Golden Guardians is only this year, right? But from what I've heard, it's a financial decision and also just a mutual agreement between Riot and the orgs.
Going into 2024, C9's made quite a few changes with the team roster and the coaching roster. Do you want to go into a little bit of what's going to change and what systems are going to be in place?
Yeah. So I can talk a little bit about my responsibilities and how they like resonate with the C9 systems meme as well. So for me, I will be doing what I usually do, which is leading our strategic discussions, our reviews, our creating structure around how we play the game, trying to find patterns and creating systematic approaches to certain objectives in the game and certain timings in the game, so that we can find some how do you say it, like find some control within all the chaos that is League of Legends, because every game is a little different, right? And there's always things that change, like small things, small advantages that you gain or disadvantages that you have, and just creating some patterns within that, and then having everyone be on the same page, communication wise and gameplay wise. So that's like the main thing. Now I will be also trying, this is spring, so things always change, but I'll be trying to take a little bit more ownership of draft. So if things go bad, I'll be getting blamed, but now even more, I will be taking on more ownership of the draft, and will try to take on that direction as well, with Veigar's help, High's help as well. So those are like the two big things, and then of course just as a head coach, you have to keep it in check with how the players are doing, on a personal level, on a team level, how they're doing with each other, and managing those emotions, those feelings, how to work together, and then just creating structure for everyone, creating a plan that everyone is in agreement with and that we want to move forward with together, so that we can reach the ultimate goal, which is winning. And this year, C9 systems usually means you got to work out. I think everyone knows that by now. But this year we want to put a little bit more focus on sleep and diet, which are things that, come and go. We tried a little bit this year. We try to be mindful about our sleep and try to be mindful about what we're eating. But we're just going to put a little bit more effort into that, and effort into getting the guys to understand what their professional schedule looks like, and just basing their lives around around consistency. So that means we're expecting them to follow a strict but not so strict plan on how they should go about being a professional and being at their very best. And once we're all in full agreement with that, we're gonna move forward together.
So I know in the past it's been kind of memed on before. I wasn't part of it, but like people memed on C9 and the systems that they have. But I think people need to understand that, number one, esports is still a relatively new sport comparatively to like traditional sports. There isn't necessarily like a laid out groundwork or foundation of like, hey, this is how you need to practice, this is how you need to live. And these are all things that we're trying to improve year after year. Moving into 2024, I think we put a lot of great effort into like, hey, this is what we think is a good way to create a system or a foundation to build the best players, so that regardless of who is a player on the team, we can provide them the right resources, the right therapy or whatever they may need, all these different things. We want to be able to have that system be built the best that we can, and we're putting a lot of effort into it. We've created like a new rule book, handbook, these things. We're defining more roles within the team itself, whether it be a staff member, whether it be a player, whatever the be. If you're involved in the Legends, we've helped define the clarity and role that they have in the team. And when you know exactly what you need to do, it's easier to do that better when you know like your role. So I think moving it forward, like you have done a lot of work with the player handbook. We're not going to show you guys that player handbook, but I think it's something that's really cool, and the players, we're getting them involved in it, and we're just making it so that we can do the best that we can with the resources that we're given outside of the game. And that's going to really matter this year, the year after, 5 years, 10 years from now. Creating this foundation is probably the most important thing for an organization to do. So with us continuing to work on it every year, I'm pretty excited for what we have planned for 2024. So
Yeah, I mean, like, let's start the core values. I know you talked about sleep and diet, right? But we have 5 core values that we wrote on the handbook that we're definitely not going to show everything. But one of them is exercise, which you probably know, C9 workouts. We're trying to have a healthy lifestyle. That's the whole point. And
so we don't get injured.
Yeah,
Some players
exactly.
have before in the past,
And then we also talk about like the effort that we want the players and the staff to make, which is, can we talk about the actual hours? Do you want to talk about the actual hours?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. Like, for to be open about these things, I think it's okay. Like, it's esports. This is not a normal job. This is a lifestyle. And like, if this is controversial, just don't put it in here. But we are expecting the guys to do 12 hours of work every day. That doesn't mean playing solo queue. It just means be involved with the game 12 hours a day. You've been a pro player. You know what that means. It's like you wake up, you play League, you get 1 hour to watch a TV show or something, and you go to sleep. Like, it's not just playing. It's like playing one-on-ones. It's doing your jungle clears, watching a video, hanging on Discord, watching your friend play League. It's just being involved with League, going and talking about draft, like sitting in here and like playing a board game with your teammates, like just generally being involved. When I say 12 hours, I'm like, if you're counting that, that's because I'm assuming they're not playing at all in their off day. A lot of players play in their off day. So, we're a little bit more flexible in the sense that, okay, like if you are going to be playing in your off day, like maybe you have a full stream day on your off day, then you don't have to do 12 hours on a regular day. You can do 10, and like kind of like structure it in a different way. But the idea at the end of the day is that, yeah, I mean, if you work in this industry, like that's your lifestyle. And it sucks to hear from the outside because it's like, oh my God, we're getting exploited or whatever the word is. But like if you're not doing that, someone else is going to be doing it. And the thing is, there's no limitations to how much time you can spend on the computer. Like if anything, once you get some mobility going, like we got exercise in, we're trying to cover all these areas and making sure we're not pushing the guys too hard, of course. That's just our reality. So
your life becomes League.
I think it's a really interesting point as well, because I know that for almost all the top teams around the world at any given time, is like one thing that I've noticed is like the number one team is never the laziest team. Like they're never the team that's doing the bare minimum, that whose coaches and staff are like forcing them to play. Like this 12 hours sounds like a lot, but honestly, like you should be doing that as a pro, and like you shouldn't even need to be told to do that. So I think it is totally reasonable. I know that in my early days of playing League,
we're playing more than that.
Yeah, it was like to become a pro, just to get to the level where you're good enough. It was like I was playing all day every day, and it wasn't something that like I felt compelled to do. It wasn't something I was doing because I was supposed to. I was just like, yeah, it's just what I did. And then when I became a pro, it's still just what I did. And I think over time, you know, distractions can come up, life can come up. But I think to really be one of those competitive players, like you're saying, it does have to be your lifestyle.
And yeah, and it sucks, and that's why a lot of people retire early. And I like, you know, throughout the years, myself included, I've been trying, like I've tried to create a normal job out of being a League of Legends pro player, and it just doesn't work. It has to be your lifestyle if you want to stay at the top, at the very top. I'm talking here. And sorry. You were gonna say.
It's all good. I was just gonna say, like, I guarantee you, nobody has ever had to tell Faker to play more. Like this guy has been the best player, pretty much undisputedly, for 10 years, and I guarantee you, no one has ever had to tell him, "Hey, dude, you're getting too distracted. You got to play more. Like, stop, like, you know, doing whatever it is you're doing." Like, it's just that commitment to the game is 100% what like makes people the best.
So what we're trying to create at C9, slowly and steadily, you know, starting with the workouts for the last few years, and now, you know, diving deeper into sleep and cognitive learning and, you know, diet and stuff like that, is we're trying to help the guys understand that, yes, it is a lifestyle, and it's not just about sitting in your computer and playing 12 hours. It's also about, you know, being dedicated about how you sleep, how much you sleep, what you eat, when you eat, and how much and how you work out, right? So all these things play a little part, maybe not into how good you play, because, you know, like, let's be realistic. At the end of the day, there's gonna be like the biggest dude that, you know, destroys you in game, or the skinniest dude that destroys you in game. He could be sleeping 4 hours, he could be sleeping 12 hours and just goes in, and there's nothing you can do about it. But like the longevity, you know, how long they're going to be at the top 4, how consistently the best they can be, and how good of a teammate they can be, and how, you know, untiltable they are, and how they can work together with their teammates, and how they can communicate properly. That comes from all those other things that I mentioned. And that's what we're trying to do here. Probably not perfect, but that's the intention. And, you know, we're always going to be having new things that we can learn, and new things that we're going to try and implement. But the main idea is there, and I think it's very hard to argue against, honestly. So that we're, you know, that's what we're committed to do.
And that is the system we're building, basically. Okay, just curious. I know you guys were all players before, and like you guys kind of mentioned about like the hours and like hours of investment you guys made each day. Like, what would you say the average would be like per day you guys like spent on like playing League or like doing this?
My average?
Yeah, as a player.
I mean, my average was 12 to 14 hours, and that's why that's the average that we have here.
I think instead of like talking about the hours, I think back in the day our schedule was pretty much like you wake up, you start the day off with like pre-draft or whatever, you do a scrim block, take a break for food, do another scrim block, take another break for food, then you do another scrim block. It's pretty common to have 3 blocks back in the day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like our first year, that's pretty much all we did. We played so much League of Legends, it's like an insane amount. We just loved it, you know, like
season 3 was like 9 games a day of
yeah,
scrims,
and then you play
something
solo
like
queue after, because one solo queue was a lot faster back then too, like the queue tabs.
Yeah.
I think that is something that like does like is important. Like it's hard to play a lot of games when you're sitting in queue for 20-30 minutes, you know. And some years it's been really bad. I don't know how it is now because I'm only Emerald at the moment, but I don't want to talk about that too much. But hopefully, you know, people want to play the game, and if they're able to play the game, they will. So we played a lot back then.
Things are definitely different now from back then. Like when it comes to the amount of resources that you can find online to improve. It's not just about like queuing up and just playing League,
so much
or
footage out there, right?
scrimming 9 games. Like we didn't have a coach back then. I don't know if you guys did, but I didn't.
We had a coach.
Yeah, but like
Our
not
coach
really.
ran the replays.
Yeah, and then the replays were not something that you could access. Like you could get like maybe a YouTube replay, but you can't get a ruffle file from an LCK team. Like you can't download the ruffle file from Worlds and like study that as a player. And there's just like, you can't go into a practice tool. Like we didn't even have practice tool before. You just like grind out games. So there are more options now. There's a lot more research. There's, better statistical databases. There's a lot more things that, the players
Shout out to Julian on our team, by the way. He has a sick data website that I got to see for the first time ever when I came to Worlds. I was like, I didn't have this when I was a player. And having these resources as a player now is just so cool. So I hope that people actually take advantage of it. Like we have like an entire website built out that tells you like information of like level 1, roam timers, like the heat map of players on like our team and every single team that we've like scrim versus or like played versus or like even like competitive games between other teams, because it's just public information that teams can use now. So like having this much data at your disposal is super helpful as long as you know how to use that data, and having that option is like crazy. And like our data team is like super good, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, big shout out to Julian. And like I was saying, there's more resources nowadays, so it's not like I was saying earlier, it's not just about playing League for 12 hours. It's about making a lifestyle of the job that you have and the position that you're in, and striving to be the very best, and winning the ultimate goal. And that's what, how you get there. Like maybe Blabber wants to full clear 10 million times to get there, and my Ballin wants to play 2v2s all day, but like someone else might want to grind solo queue. It's just a balance, and we're here to try and help them find their balance and be at their best.
The first one is sleep that we mentioned. Second, diet. Third, exercise. Fourth is effort, which you mentioned. And 5, last one is continuous learning. You want to talk about continuous learning? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, I guess. But
I mean, it's the word, the way it's phrased there is like, okay, yeah, it's hard to say no to that. It just means, just be in the right mindset. Don't let your ego carry over, and just whenever someone gives you feedback, whether it's aggressive feedback or non-aggressive feedback, that you try and be in the mindset of, this person wants to win, I want to win as well. We're going to talk about whatever ego clashes we're having right now, but at the end of the day, I'm going to try and listen to what you have to say, and I'm going to be looking to get better. Yeah. And just looking for ways to get better, It's not just about conversation. It can be anything. Like I've been saying, there's many ways to improve. So just having that mindset.
yeah, I mean, like we have those core values, so that like what Hai mentioned, this is a still very new industry, right? And we're trying to find a way we can standardize like what it means to be an esports player. And I think those 5 core values really bring, or like kind of explain, hey, this is what it takes to be a pro player in this industry.
In C9 at least.
C9.
Yes, C9.
Well, thank you all for joining me. It was good to hear, a little bit of the inside of how C9's been doing, how we're looking at 2024. If you guys want more of these, just let us know in the comments below. And for everyone watching, thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.
Bye-bye.